One of my favorite things about David, he's really good at studying human behavior, but combining that with storytelling. And his understanding of storytelling and human behavior gives him the ability to craft really specific messaging all about driving change. And some of you got some emails from us prior to this conference to do a little survey about the role of fear in the creative process. By applause, who completed that survey? Yes. We were very surprised by how many of you participated in that, and also like really engaged. We got a bunch of notes going. This blew my mind. That was amazing. So break it down for those who didn't participate, what they're about to see, what did we learn?
Yep, so our goal here was to attempt to measure the fears and insecurities that hold back creative people. Often a difficult thing to measure because it's very emotional, but there are ways to do it. So the survey that we crafted specifically got to the types of fears that people have in creative pursuits, but we also wanted to contrast those against fears of real things that could really hurt you. And while emotional fears feel real, there are things that can, certainly physically hurt you and are much more real.
Love it.
And the findings around that were really interesting.
Awesome. Let's dig in. What did we learn?
All right, let's check it out. So the first question that we asked, we put out a whole list of fears. I'm going to read it off my phone. Just you guys can see it good here, but it's just a little small for me there. So it was the impact of your ability to be successful based on these fears. I've masked the top 6, but right below that are things like not being original, not being perfect, not being able to make an income. I'm sure some people can relate to any or hopefully not all of these. But toward the bottom, some things that really didn't hold people back are change, feeling unworthy of recognition, becoming stale. But what was really interesting was the cluster of the top 6. Anybody, Harris, or anybody want to hearken a guess as to what the category of all the top 6 fears fell into? Fear of...
You're putting me on the spot. I was about to...
Fear of failure. It's fear of social acceptance. Failure kind of falls into that bucket. So look at these top 6. Not living up to expectations, being judged negatively, being rejected, making a bad decision, disapproval from others, receiving deconstructive criticism.
Man, we're a sensitive bunch. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enneagram 4s.
Yeah, so I thought that...
You need a 3 to run your conference, though, apparently, yeah.
So that was a really interesting finding. So then what we did is we took 22 fears, and we asked you agreement statement with regards to how much you agree or disagree with this statement. So for example, the top one that got the most agreement was mistakes are opportunities for growth. Most people completely agreed with that, whereas bottom of the list, I need things to stay the same. So it's a group that gets bored, doesn't mind change at all. Reading at the bottom, boundaries make me crazy. I need a project to be perfect. So that's all great things to see. I'm actually surprised those weren't higher, so some of those. So I think that's excellent. Okay. Up at the top of the list, mistakes are opportunities for growth. I love new experiences outside my comfort zone. I need people to like me. Very much toward the last slide. So you're not going to be able to digest all of this now. Next week, we're going to send all of this out to you in a report so that you can go through it at your leisure, memorize all of it, share it with your friends.
Memorize it. The better question is, what do we do with this? So we learned this. We're like, okay, cool. Now we know this, but what does it tell us, and how can we take action on it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So what we see here from this next one is we had this creative read a narrative, and we found that everyone particularly agreed with her when she said things like, when I get writer's block and run out of ideas. So people could definitely relate to that. Sometimes just getting started is the hardest thing. I'm afraid of failure, but I don't let it scare me. I fear regret, right? So that led into, now what do we do with it? So this was really interesting. As I said earlier, we compared these emotional fears to real things in the world that might actually happen and might actually hurt you. And these were things that you said you were most willing or least willing to experience. So what you were most willing to experience was a career change, and what you were least willing to experience is identity theft, right? So I hope this Wi-Fi that you guys emailed out is secure, by the way.
But yet, we don't want identity theft. We would rather drive in a tornado.
You would rather drive in a tornado. Now, interestingly, though, changing a flat tire on a busy highway really freaks these people out. Least willing, third degree sun. No, actually, flat tire is not concerning. That's the only real fear that actually jumped up and got in the way. So what was interesting, and again, counterintuitive, which is why I love research, you've heard the old adage that, people fear public speaking more than death, right? I would have expected that to be reflected here. And the truth is, not so much. So ultimately, what do? Here's a couple things that we learned for sure. We all have fears related to being socially accepted, but we're not going to let them stand in our way. We manage through those fears, and we understand them as a cost of doing business. And we're going to seek out new experiences, understanding that making mistakes teaches us along the way. So the one real takeaway is, these emotional fears are very much in our heads. And when talked about in isolation, they're scary, and they hold us back, and they freak us out. But when compared to things that are really, really important and that can really hurt you, suddenly they melt away. And if they can melt away for that reason, then there are other mental tricks that people can do for themselves to shake themselves out of those, out of those dark or scary places. And if you all want to hear a nice inspirational song, it was actually our research director who analyzed all this data for me. He said, you know what? I love this song, and you got to put this passage on the screen. It's from a song called The Breakup Song. I don't know if anyone knows it. I didn't know it. Fear you don't own me. I know I'm strong, and I am free. Got my own identity, so fear you will never be welcome here.
Yeah, I mean, the most powerful tool in this room is imagination. And I remember this takes me back to last year. We had a conversation around fear, talked about worry and fear being a misuse of imagination. And it's like we're already using so much creative energy worrying about these types of things and what other people are going to think about us or how our work is going to be judged. So if worry is a misuse of imagination, why not reallocate all of that energy into doing things like dreaming and creating and writing the stories and sharing the ones that were meant to be shared?
Yeah, and you're not alone. I mean, everyone in this room shares all of these feelings. The results were very consistent. We didn't see a lot of outlier data. So also lean on your colleagues and lean on your friends. They are going through the same thing that you're going through, and you can help each other come out of it together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I struggle with this on stage. It's like every year this week stresses me out, not because of the amount of work, because I'm willing to push through the work, but it's like, oh man, well, do we have what it takes this year? Like, will it be good enough? Will people like it? Are they going to yell at us because the program wasn't good? So this is totally relatable. It's pretty awesome.
And I can relate too. I mean, as we're putting this thing together, I'm talking with my team and saying, we got to make sure that this delivers enough value. They're sticking me up on stage in front of all these people, most of whom are way smarter than me. And we've got to deliver. So I deal with it myself in my own work all the time as well.
Very cool. Will you guys please thank David? Dave, thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it very much. Very insightful, very insightful.